Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Tayte, and bringing back to the channel Paul Klein for another episode of the Mount Rushmore series, the second of it being a weekly show, and we are probably doing the most personal one yet, maybe the most personal one we will ever do on this short season, as we talk about the films that made us. And I'm very excited to get Paul on. Just jumping in there, we were talking before we hit record. We were trying to remember last time we had you on for a video, which we believe was last year. It wasn't a Tom Cruise one this time round. But before we started getting into any of that, how are we all doing tonight? Yeah,
doing good. Ready to discuss, go back on the therapy couch and talk about the films that have made me. There's going to be a lot of kind of, a lot of getting things out there and kind of talking about my film journey in general. So I'm really excited about this.
Excellent. And Paul as well. I know we spoke before about getting you on for this. Thank you so much for being free to jump on. And the reason I keep looking down is because I've got some lovely notes on my desk. And I guess we're going to explain this to some people at home. So as this is a bit more personal, this episode, we aren't doing a combined Mount Rushmore this time round. We will do that on the other ones. Anything that involves like a director, film, a series, etc. It will vary. But because this is personal, we can't combine it. That would defeat the logic of the show, and some people might get upset at the abuse given to important films from their lives. So this may be a bit shorter, and we've tried to up the stakes. We have literally moments before we hit record, we've decided that we are going to try and predict each other. So we've all got some notes somewhere, which we're going to reveal at some point. Let's say after we've all done our four, we will reveal it. It's not bingo. No one needs to shout bingo. But it is for them. Where we're gonna see if anyone got it right. How well do we know each other? Which is very, not tricky, but I guess it depends of how we do this. And to people watching at home, we do want to hear from you as well. So please do comment below your Mount Rushmore picks. Certainly the films that made you. If you want to share the films, maybe add why, the importance of them, what journeys that put you on, all those kind of things. We do want to hear it. It's a very open episode, so you can interpret the films that made you however you please. And if you want to find out about other videos, what else we're working on, go get us on our social medias, linktree.com/cinemasavvy. That puts you through to our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd. We're using Instagram and YouTube Shorts a lot more now for Reels. So thank you to people that have joined us from those. We hope that it's not spamming you too much, but it's a nice way to get shorter clips from our episodes to see if you do like what you are watching. And I do hope today's episode goes the same. And I feel like, not that there needs to be a preamble, but I feel like the tone needs to be not even lightened, but before we really kickstart this, is there anyone want to talk about anything? What, really briefly, really randomly?
I guess it isn't just kind of, it isn't just our four favorite films for this video. It is films that made us. It's various different things that have shaped us over our lives. It could end up being your four favorite films. It could be films that you dislike, but it's changed the way you see different films and stuff like that. It could be absolutely anything. It's just four films that stand out within your own life, and we'd love to see people put theirs in the comments as well.
Yes, please do. And I guess what we'll talk about the order of this, I'm going to do mine first, Tayte will do his second, Paul third, and that's just doing one at a time. So I'll pick my first one. Again, there's no order to it. I have conjured up an order for three of mine, so they may make sequential sense as the video goes on. And the fourth one is a real, not necessarily loose cannon pick, but I'm still deciding on my fourth one, if I'm truthfully honest with you all, because there are two films that I really am struggling to pick between. But the core three are locked in. And I guess if I kickstart mine, let's just get the really obvious one out of the way. The second one's going to be equally as obvious. Let's get a Star Wars film on the board. We knew it was Spider-Man, isn't it? You knew this day was coming, Pete. But if anyone's curious to know which one, I'm choosing to put the Phantom Menace on. And the reason why, I know we spoke about it, we spoke about Star Wars on the channel, that's an understatement. It was the first film I was took to the cinema to see as a 3-year-old. It really kickstarted me being obsessed with Star Wars. It kickstarted me being, like, I guess, watching films as a child. So a lot of stuff in my life is deep-rooted to that, and I'm so frequently reminded by my older sister, what would have happened if Mum and Dad didn't take you to the cinema instead? Well, the answer is I was apparently took to see it 6 times at the age of 3 by varying different family members. So at some point I would have seen it, and at some point I would have been obsessed. Maybe I'd have been obsessed at the age of 4, not 3. But getting into like Lego, which you can see behind me. Everything stems from being taken to cinema to watch The Phantom Menace as a kid. And listen, we talk about the films that make us. It's not just on the board because it's the first film I watched. It's obvious that Star Wars has had that impact on my life. I'm not doing multiple Star Wars picks. I know some people could if they wanted to. And there are other Star Wars films. You know, you look at the importance of these films. Like, I could make a case for Episode 3 for teaching me that things can end, only for it to come back 10 years later with Episode 7 that things didn't end, I guess, after all. And obviously, the journey of Episode 7 is just one of them, which we witnessed as a generation. We had our Phantom Menace moment. But I don't think I'm doing this list a disservice if I don't put the Phantom Menace first. Is anyone really surprised? Not sure at this point. Did you think it could have been enough? I mean, as a kid, if I'm really honest, talking the Star Wars banner, I could always chuck loads of films in, but as a kid, for the purposes of video, it's either Return of the Jedi or it's Episode 1. I watched Episode 1 first. That's the one I'm more attached to. I love Return of the Jedi. It was my favourite until Revenge of the Sith, like favourite.
Really?
But yeah, as a kid, that's not controversial. As a kid, I didn't like Empire. And I'll be really honest, because I know what we spoke about before. As a kid, I didn't even like 1977 Star Wars as much as the others. I am what they call a prequel.
OG's always been a favourite of mine. That and Revenge of the Sith. The OG and Revenge have always been top tier.
I mean, I love all of them. Episode 9.
It's like choose your favourite kids, you know?
Yeah, it's like choosing your favourite kid, then one of them turns out to, be someone you need to disown, and that's Episode 9, isn't it? So let's just get that one now. I'm not going to go into. I've got no kids to disown, but people see the news, you'll see why some kids do get disowned for horrible crimes, and that's what I need to awkwardly transition into. Tate, let's go for your first pick to get me off.
Yes.
I'm really bad.
My first pick. I'm not going down the controversial route, but I'm going down a route that we've been chatting a lot about this franchise recently. I feel like it's not milking a dead cow. It's more like kicking a dead cow at this point. Back in 2012. I wanted to start a YouTube channel with my best mate at the time. And back in 2012, we had our own sketch channel. It was awful. It's been deleted now, thank God. But I did go on and make my own kind of daily vlogging channel. And the second ever video I did was prompted by a cinema going experience. And it was the first ever film review I did. And ever since then, I've been reviewing films all the way through. So this goes way back. This goes 12 years back. This is Prometheus. I despise this film with such a burning passion that I basically made it my second ever YouTube video. I really hated it. And I think it's because I really loved both Alien and Aliens kind of growing up with film and stuff like that. Those films excited me. I was never into horror films, but I loved sci-fi. And the fact that they were going to make kind of a modern kind of prequel to it, I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be really, really cool. And I hadn't seen any of the trailers. I'd avoided all the spoilers. And I was like, oh, I think I got a special edition of Empire magazine for it as well. I was so hyped around it. It was possibly one of the most hyped films I'd ever been hyped for of all time, even more than Star Wars Episode 7. For me, this was stratospheric kind of levels of this is going to be such a good film. The amount of disappointment I had coming out of the cinema. I watched it with my dad. I turned to my dad afterwards and said that was awful. I wasn't expecting it to be like that. Not just the modernizations of all the different technologies, even though it's set, prior to the Alien films, but just the complete nonsense characters and the complete nonsense storyline and the awful origin story. The only good performance in it being Michael Fassbender. I was absolutely just devastated by it. And this is a person who at the time, once again, I'd seen a bunch of Ridley Scott films. I knew he was a great director, and I was like, oh, he's going to pull off another amazing one. I was like, what? A good director can make a film that I don't like or that's terrible? And you know what? Especially after kind of seeing the recent Alien films and the fact that they've had basically 2 films to try and recover, the criticisms that they got at the time. This film prompted me to start making YouTube videos on film. Not only that, but I think I've spoken about Prometheus the most out of any film ever on YouTube. I've made at least 10 videos on this across my old channel and Cinema Savvy. I absolutely gut-wrenchingly hate this film, and that's why this film has made me. It's formed me. out of the fact that I disliked it and I wanted to share my opinion online, and that's what got me started with this. Without this film, I wouldn't be making YouTube videos about film at all.
You're like the engineer at the start. You've drank the black.
Paul, you look like you're about to burst.
Because I'm pretty sure I've literally just had PTSD that I know Paul is a big Prometheus fan.
I know he is.
Fucking love Prometheus. Prometheus is like my second favorite film of 2012 after The Avengers.
No way!
Yeah. I saw it in the BFI IMAX with my mum. I was like, oh, there's like a new Alien movie. And I went to go see, I saw it in 3D. I was like, I fucking love this. I remember I come out of it. I went to my friend who got me onto Alien, and I was like, it's as good as Aliens. And for 12 years, I have had to defend this film against my family. When they're like,
you think it's as good as Aliens?
It is. It's so good.
No.
I love. Do you know what's even funnier is that the day of the press screening for Romulus, which I went to, I was on a plane coming home from holiday. I watched Prometheus on the flight home, and I was like, "Still good. Still good. It's still good." That's why I keep trying to get you guys to do a Ridley Scott retrospective, because I want to come on. I want to come on to the Prometheus episode.
Keep me away from that episode when we do that, I swear. To make me rewatch that again, Prometheus. Given the context, my God.
I love Prometheus. I think Prometheus is brilliant. This is a tough week for movies I like.
Yeah.
This is where you put Prometheus on yours, and we have a really awkward conversation.
Yeah, that would be awkward.
You know what's really upsetting is that the other day I was on... I got to pick the film for the next episode of Well Good Movies, and I picked Coyote Ugly. And then I had to listen to an entire episode where 4 people trashed a film I love. I was sat on my break going, I love this film. All the way through, they're just going like, oh, it's so terrible. It's really badly acted. Sorry, Paul. I love Prometheus. I don't care. I don't care.
That's okay. It's a film that made me, basically. I know some people like it. Some people like it. I despised it. I'm not the only one, trust me. And
no, I'm fully aware of how much people hate it. I asked for the 3-disc collector's edition for my birthday that year, and my uncle flat out refused to get it for me. He was like, "No, I'm not getting that." I was like, "That's what I want."
It probably helped in the setting. It probably helped in the setting you watched it, because you said you went and watched it at the BFI. Watching it on a normal screen, it's a pretty film. I assume it would be an even more spectacular looking film on a bigger screen with, better visuals and everything like that. But no, Prometheus is a terrible film, and I will stand by that. And Paul, it's your go.
I'm boycotting this channel. No, my first one, and you know what, it will be no surprise to anyone, is The Lion King from 1994. Yeah, exactly. Films that made us. Is Paul going to pick that film he loves and he wears on T-shirts and things? I've literally got a bloody right in front of me. I've got
to show you a shirt I've ordered after this stream. That's such a random thing to say.
I'm literally waiting for a Lion King jumper I ordered from America to come in. The Lion King, it's as old as I am. I watched it so many times. My VHS player as a kid chewed up the VHS. Even that got sick of me watching it. I watched it so much as a kid that I now find that my mum and dad say Lion King lines subconsciously. They just quote it without realizing what they're quoting. I'll be sat with my dad, and he'll just quote something, and I'll be like, that's a Lion King line. He'll be like, I hate you. I hate you so much. I don't know. I actually can't get my 5-year-old to sit down and watch it. He refuses to watch it out of spite because he knows how much it means to me. He's like, I'm not going to watch it. I'm like, I feel like Al Pacino in The Godfather. I'm like, you broke my heart. I love it. Anytime it gets re-released in the cinema, I go to see it. It's one of those films for me that, no matter how I'm doing, no matter what I'm feeling, I can put it on, and I'm just like, yeah, this movie is the shit. I think it's a perfect film. And I tell you one thing, I was working in a cinema when the remake came out, and we had a staff screening of it. There was about 5 of us, and one of my friends was sat next to me, and he was literally like, I could feel you getting tenser and tenser as the film went on, and I was like, it's so bad. And like the entire way home, I was basically ranting about how much I hated it. And then I like got to my house, and he went, it's just basically the same thing. And I was like, exactly. So why isn't it good? It's exactly the same. Why do it again? I love The Lion King, and no list I'm ever going to compile of films I love is going to not have it. And when people go to me like, I am one of those people. When people are like, I love The Lion King, I'm like, yeah.
No, you don't.
You don't love it like I love it. Or they're like, my favorite film's The Lion King. I'm like, back the fuck up. What are you talking about? Like when I was younger, I used to be able to perform it like a one-man show when I was drunk. I did it once, and honestly, like I just remember somebody being like, how can you remember all of it? I was like, I've seen it like honestly about 1,000 times, and I never get bored.
We need to see that one-man show.
My memory's gotten so much worse. I couldn't. I'd forget the. Do you know what I used to be able to do it. Now I can't. My memory's so bad, but I love it so much. It's perfect.
No, listen, we kind of not like a bug we knew it's the list. We've known you how many years, and it's the film we've always spoke to you about. And if I'm really honest, when it was mentioned people again, I was like, I'm going to go for Paul first because I know it also it guarantees a discussion about The Lion King, which is always great. So I know there's not going to be 4 Star Wars films. We're good. But no, excellent start. I'll go into my second one. I don't think this is... Again, I'm just going to get another one out of the way. Everyone knows. I've probably said it many times on the channel. Yes, Tate, you're right. Let's get another one off the list. The Dark Knight. Quite simple, really. Without this film, I'm not here doing this video. Without this film, I don't go and... I say study film. Obviously, I studied film when I was like, 16 through to 21. I then worked in it, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. The Dark Knight is the one where I watched it like, wow, like who made this film? How do they make films? Because I had Star Wars growing up. I was like, yeah, I know who George Lucas is. He's the old dude that was always on the interviews with Steven Spielberg. I knew who Steven Spielberg was because who doesn't know who Steven Spielberg is? And I didn't know the content of a director. Even Tim Burton at that point in time, we were segueing off what we spoke about last week. And it was one of them where the Dark Knight was like, who's this Hans Zimmer fella doing the music? And then it opens up a can of worms like, oh my God, he did Dead Man's Chest and The Kraken's one of my favorite songs from a film ever. And it really kickstarted everything. And I think at that point, it was the end of year 7. The Dark Knight came out. We're on holiday. All these newspapers, you'd have to like walk to a shop. We'd be in Spain. We'd have to walk to a shop to buy a paper in English. And there's all the reviews. And there was like I call her the original Karen. We'll never know the reviewer's name. She wrote this awful review saying this film is diabolical. The opening scene has a smoke grenade opened in somebody's mouth. I'm like, get me to the fucking cinema. Because it was this event film. I didn't know who Heath Ledger was. I didn't know about the behind the scenes of him like passing away. So I didn't have that going. Like, I've seen Breakback Mountain. I've seen this. All that came after, and a lot of that came from my sister, who's a massive Heath Ledger fan. But this really is the film that kickstarted. Like Star Wars, almost, introduces me. That's a childhood thing. That Star Wars is a fictional world. I know it was fictional, but this was where it's like, this is how people make films. And the 4 years in between this and Dark Knight Rises, I was absolutely disgusting with film stuff. I would be sit there looking at set photos leaking, anything I could get my hands on. I'd be searching Batman 3 news on Google all the time, hoping I'd get an announcement. So yes, I did sit there throughout the entirety of Leonardo DiCaprio's Riddler rumors. Of course, that didn't happen after all. But yeah, the Dark Knight's on the list, and Nolan as well. Obviously, that's the filmmaker that's influenced me more than I say influenced me. I don't make films, but that's the filmmaker who it was like, okay, I want to see his other films. Now I'm watching his other films. He's right up there as my favorite. I owe him a lot. I've been able to listen to the score. I see the whole score, know like parts of it. The Hans Zimmer live. It's influential for me for many generations. It's still my Batman, my favorite Joker rendition. It's a film I try and watch as little as I can because I have this weird thing. I don't know if you guys like this, but certain films like Star Wars I can watch loads, not a problem. There are a few films in my life where, as I've got older, I've realized the less I watch it, not the better it is, but it's almost like a backhanded compliment. Like, wow, This film's so good. Let's put it away for another few years. And in that category, I have films like The Godfather. I have films like Lord of the Rings. There's probably a few others that can jump to mind, but they're ones I don't often watch, and they aren't films I recommend to people because I do not want to have a conversation with somebody if they didn't like it. So I'll go. And the week of the 10th anniversary, I went down to the Beer for IMAX. I think I watched it twice. Once was with you, the other was by myself because you were going skiing for the first time. I think 2018 was one of them. We watched it twice. I watched it twice.
No, I had to bail out.
No,
to go
Adina was going away.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the first time I saw it, that day I got offered a job to work in the film industry, and I thought, it's all come full circle. The company was shit, so I'll get to that later on. But the timing of that call on that day, on that week of that anniversary for that film was. So no Dark Knight, no Cinema Savvy. Sorry.
No, and that absolutely,
it's predictable.
Like, it's very.
Star Wars and Dark Knight are the two most obvious ones I was always going to go for, and it's in the title, and I like other Batman films. I just like this one more than all the other ones.
I prefer Batman Begins.
That's fine. I love Batman.
I also Batman Begins is my Batman film as well, but I respect the Dark Knight. I love the Dark Knight.
To be fair, I like Batman Begins because I think it's silly, whereas the Dark Knight the Dark Knight is. The problem is I've had this argument with people before, but they're like, the Dark Knight's a better film. I'm like, it 100%. It's a better made film, better across the board. I just prefer Batman Begins because I think it's funnier, it's sillier, it's got moments in it that just crack me up. That bit where he bails out of the window on fire is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Do you know what's even funnier is, did you see The Batman with Robert Pattinson?
Yes.
When he's like flying through the streets and then he just like fails into the thing. I was like, why? But no, the Dark Knight.
He really is beginning.
But yeah, I mean, oh my god, Dark Knight is amazing. Like,
and every time it's on the cinema, I know it did 4DX, still not seeing it in 4DX, but you ever get it on an IMAX, go. And it's amazing seeing this being the first ever IMAX film because it's like 6 minutes, but 6 or 12 minutes maybe, but it's great.
Have you done the trilogy in one night, like an all-nighter where you watch all three? I've done it twice.
Not an all-nighter. In COVID, it wasn't. I know Batman Day is a thing now, but my nearest IMAX did all three on one day, and it was in the lead up to Tenet coming out. And me and my sister, we did Begins in IMAX, Dark Knight in IMAX, and Rises in IMAX. Never seen Batman Begins in IMAX. I know it's got no IMAX footage, but it was released apparently in IMAX in 05, so just a bigger screen. But I'd never seen Begins at the cinema until that point, so tick that one off as well for me. But oh my, I know the BFI had it last year. We went to the Batman exhibition on Batman Day, so we got the Joker's costume, which was fucking buzzing with because it's a big film thing for me. And this obviously you get the Heath Ledger stuff, and you realise what we lost with one of who I think would go on to be one of the biggest actors of his generation. And you look at how Nolan's treated his career with respect after it, and there's a lot of stuff. So yeah, I'm just glad with the Dark Knight that it's one of them where it opened a lot of doors, and
dialogue is so crisp as well. I don't think it ever gets credit for how well written it is. Like, everyone always talks about
first two are exceptional,
the acting and all this, and it's like, but there's some of the dialogue in it is so good. Like, I don't know why,
funny
but
as well.
It's so funny. There's one bit, the thing that I quote from it, especially whenever someone does something out of spite, and then they'll look at me and I'll just go, "We burn the forest down." And they were a bit. I keep saying it at work to people. They're like, they'll do something out of spite, and I'll be like, "We burn the forest down," and they're like, "I don't get it." I'm like, "Watch The Dark Knight, you'll understand what I mean."
It's and last thing I said when I went to Chicago, so Star Wars Celebration 2019. It was a 3-in-1. It was, I can finally go to Chicago. I've got one reason to go. Star Wars Celebration is on great. Reason 3, I can go to Dark Knight places. And no joke, everyone says, "Oh, it's Chicago, you're going to get shot." None of that. Like London, if you're in the tourist spots, you're going to be fine. Or maybe not with the news recently, but outside the Lego store, but different conversation. The listening to the soundtrack, walking around that city was fucking incredible. Even seeing little bypasses underneath, I was like, wow, Batman was here. He obviously wasn't. And obviously I went to the Joker on the corner. I spent ages finding the spot from the opening shot because it's one of my favorite things ever. just the Joker standing on the corner. I tried to do the cinema thing, match up the photos, couldn't do it to save my life, but I didn't care. But yeah, that's Dark Knight out the way, number 2.
Exactly. My number 2 selection. I'm going to take you back to 2000, kind of early 2000. So I want to say it was probably in like March or April 2000. Now, this film came out in 1999, but it didn't get a UK release until then. And it was the first film I'd ever seen in cinema. And it was Toy Story 2. And I'm so glad that it wasn't a terrible film. That was my first cinematic experience. I love Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2 is fantastic. It's one of my favorite Pixar films. What's that?
It's the best one.
It is. It's the best Toy Story. I wouldn't say it's the best Pixar film. I've got a different selection for that. But if we ever get round to a Pixar retrospective or anything like that, then I'm sure that my selection will come out. But it's such a phenomenal film. It's such a great sequel to its original. And I've gone back over it like so many times over the years. And it's just improves on everything the first did. And the first was groundbreaking for its animation. The second film had the story to go with it and also made the little touch-ups to make it like better. The only thing you could say about Toy Story 3 is it looks shinier. It like the films, if you watch them, the animation is just sublime. And the storytelling sublime. And, you know, the villains are sublime. And just it's just almost a perfect sequel. And I'm so glad that that was my first ever film experience. I'm so glad that was my first ever time kind of going to a cinema, and that was what I got to watch, because it could have been something so random. I don't know what else was out in that time period, you know, kind of late 99, early 2000. It could have been anything in that run. I'm just so happy that it was this. Instead of another film. But I fondly look back on this film, and I'm sure that a lot of people have memories around our age, George, because that was a family film to go and see at the time. So
it's my favorite Toy Story film. It's got one of the greatest ever PS1 games ever made with Toy Story 2.
Yeah.
Shout out to Toy Story Racer, a game that should have more respect. Toy Story 2 is my favorite. My leaving present at my old job was a Buzz Lightyear figure, like the proper, not a toy replica, like the proper collector ones that sat on my shelf for like 4 years. It's locked away in the garage safely now. But Toy Story is just fucking phenomenal. See, Tarantino's interview recently, sorry to divert. He was talking about trilogies. He's like, I went and watched Toy Story 4. You can pitch Tarantino in this like 100 miles an hour cocaine-fueled speech. So I went and watched Toy Story 4. He's like, the third one's perfect. It's a perfect trilogy. Never going to watch the fourth one. Don't tell me how good it is. I was like, yeah. Now we're getting 5. Now we're getting 5, and they're going to undo. They're going to undo. 5's going to undo 4. It's going to be like Indiana Jones.
And 4 undid 3, which was a perfect ending. No, I like your Toy Story 2. So good. Stinky Pete is one of the all-time animated baddies. He's so good. That bit where when they say it's not fair, and then he like starts shouting at them, is like so intense for a kids' film. It's so insane, and like there's so much in that film that I'm like, this is really weird for a kids' film. Like the whole bit where he like is ripping Woody's arm off. It's like, this is a kids' film, guys. You're going crazy.
Imagine if they go live action. Jesus.
You've got the great. Why have I got to go all the way to work on a Saturday? He crosses the road.
Yeah.
I love the second. And you know what? Was it the last Pixar film that gave us the good blooper reel? One of the last.
Monsters Inc. had one.
Monsters Inc. had. And you had justice for Bug's Life, as I'll always say. We get the Bug's Life cameos. They will get swatted by Buzz out of the way.
Oh my god! The thing that still makes
I'm glad you watched it first.
Is when he's putting all the stuff. When she's like, an extra pair of eyes and some cheese puffs and some monkey food. Why do I need monkey food? For the monkeys. Oh god!
It's insanely quotable, and it's a great film to look back.
And it almost got deleted.
Reference. It almost
got deleted, didn't it? The first Pixar sequel. That'd be a horrible world to live in.
So many Star Wars references in it.
Zerg.
Great Jurassic Park reference as well.
Yeah.
Oh god, I love Toy Story. That bit where the guy comes in and he like fixes up Woody. The music in that sequence is some of my favorite film music. That whole sequence, I still quote whenever someone says, "Can you hurry up?" I still go, "You can't rush art." Usually, I'll be honest with you, it's usually when I'm in the toilet. But
Okay,
for a walk.
Your second pick, Paul.
Mine, again, this isn't going to be, I think, controversial or shocking. Jurassic Park. It's the film that made me love movies. Like, The Lion King is like just a part of who I am, and Jurassic Park is one where it. I had a VH. I've still got the VHS double set with The Lost World, and yeah, it's the film that I watched and I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to write and make and talk about movies. And, I came on your show for the Jurassic Park episode and I've got a Jurassic Park tattoo. Like, it is that thing. Again, a bit like Star Wars with you, George. It's like, no Jurassic Park, I don't get obsessed with film. I end up not. My life doesn't take that route. And every time I watch it, and I've watched it a lot of times, anytime they re-release it in the cinema or the Prince Charles shows it, I go. For my birthday, my family actually booked out a cinema screen, so that I watched it with my entire family and my friends and stuff. We actually, my 4-year-old niece was there, and I kept turning around to her because I was a bit like, is she going to be all right? Because it's a bit scary. It's a bit scary. And the bit where Gennaro gets eaten by the Tyrannosaur, she just went, Mummy, I love this. I was like, yes! I had my dad there. My dad was like, I let you watch this as a kid. What kind of parent am I? But every time I watch it, like, I am like almost Rocky Horror Picture Show style, shouting the lines at the screen back because I think it's a perfect movie. It's got everything you want. The score is so fucking good. The acting's good. The visual effects still hold up. And like I say, everything you need to know about making a film is in Jurassic Park, I think. Like just the timing of it, the stuff they lay the seeds at the beginning, even the thing where he like ties the seatbelt because he's got 2 female bits of the seatbelt and he ties them together and it's like, oh, 2 females and then they find a way. It's so clever. Jurassic Park is just one of my favorites.
You met David Kirk, right? And when you did was it at the Prince Charles?
He was at the Prince Charles. Yeah, he did a Q&A for his book, which I've still not read. I got a signed copy of
doing the new one.
Yeah, I've still not read. Yeah, that's what gives me hope about the new one. I don't like that it's still called Jurassic World.
No, but it's Gareth Edwards, so I'm excited because the moment they said it's Gareth Edwards, I thought, okay, you know what, I'm in. I don't want to be in, but I'm in because it's Gareth Edwards, and I completely forgot about you and Jurassic Park. I'm not going to lie, I feel like an idiot because I've got 3 films written down I predicted for you.
I know. You know what? When they said that Gareth Edwards and David Koepp are coming back, like doing Jurassic Park, I was that Rick and Morty thing of, you son of a bitch, I'm in. I was like, oh, they've got me. They've got me with a filmmaker who I haven't disliked a film of his yet.
And he can shoot scale, which every dinosaur film seems to have forgotten about since 1997.
And actually, he might show some dinosaurs as opposed to focusing on King Locusts for 2.5. God, I hate Dominion. I hate it so much.
I refuse to watch it because I think the Jurassic World series is terrible.
I love the first one. I
didn't hate the first one. I didn't hate it. The second one I thought was kind of dumb. And then also because what was it? There was a whole section in the second one where they were talking about they needed to get Blue because they needed to put Raptor in the Indoraptor. And it was like, but the Indoraptor is part Indominus Rex, which was already part Raptor. So there's already Raptor in the Indoraptor from when it was the Indominus Rex. That makes no sense. Is nobody paying attention to the film? I hate it. I hate it.
My thing was just, I get doing the Indominus Rex, but everyone didn't need its own DNA edited dinosaur. But yeah, sorry to have stamped on Jurassic Park, but talking about the Jurassic Worlds. But no, I'm glad Park's great to have on there. It's like we've insulted the video, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to do my third one. This is going to be weird. I don't think anyone's going to protest. I have obviously spoke about a journey so far, going from film that got me into film. Well, film that got me aware of what film is. Film into film. I'm going to put Rocketman at number 3, which I think is going to catch a lot of people off guard. No, I'm not a closet singer. I'm not Elton John.
Do it. Sing this bit.
Well, I've got a very terrible story about working on it, but this is where the core of this pick comes from. So I mentioned I worked for a terrible company for a year. I still got to work on a lot of films by working for that company, and it wasn't just a case of we would turn up and sit in an office and talk about films. This was actively on it. So day one, we had to do some work on Rocketman. And the team I was put in for the year that followed, I don't know how much I must talk about this, but my team you'd essentially be in a team and your team had loads of projects on the go. This was the biggest one for the company I worked for. Not the biggest by production budget, but the biggest in terms of our contribution on this film. It was the biggest the company had ever done at that point in time. So I went from someone that knew nothing about Elton John to having people going out to record songs to play on like audition tapes, who would then play it on mute or on mime on set. So and I famously once accidentally told everyone to learn Tiny Dancer when they were in fact meant to learn I'm Still Standing, which was the closing part of the film. So that almost didn't go too well. But they looked at it in a good way, saying, not the company, the actual production were like, well, you know what, you taught them once and they can learn another, so that's all good. Yeah, I had a big attachment to this. It was a heavy job. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of days, a lot of long days. There's a lot of other things we're working on. I won't list the name of them, but it's on my personal letterbox, the films I've worked on. I was very lucky with what I worked on for a year. I ticked off a lot of franchises I've wanted to work on. Basically everything but Star Wars. They got thrown off episode 9 a week before filming started. I guess that was really the warning sign. You could have been thrown off anything but Star Wars. I wouldn't have cared. So Rocketman, not only the first thing I worked on, one of the biggest projects I've worked on, and I've been very lucky since that point to have like seen Elton John live on his farewell tour. I met most of the cast and crew through like various events, not like on set or at the studio or anything, just I've been at a red carpet, they've been at the red carpet. So I've built up a very weird attachment to this film. And I just thought, looking at the 4 to do, it kind of made sense, right? The first thing, instruction to film, me wanting to work on film, doing this. I'll be honest, if I'd have picked things like Bond, which I've worked on, I'd have been like, yeah, great. I worked on it for a few days. Technically, yes, I worked on it. Morbius, we did a day. And Manchester does not double for New York, in case people didn't know. But Rocketman was a
told you that when I was watching the film, and I was like, that's clearly not New York.
Imagine doing the London Underground scene. This is a subway, is it? But yeah, Rocketman was I love the film's fucking great. Well, I took my entire family to watch it at the cinema. Like I didn't not spared no expense stress about it. I was like, everyone, let's go watch the Elton John musical. I was like, there's going to be hard drugs on it. There's going to be loads of nudity on it. There's going to be uncomfortable scenes in it. All this stuff I spent months working on for people. And yeah, I don't often say I'm proud of my work, but that was a great film to be a part of. But actually, looking at this modern biopic, so that's not big on music, nothing's really come close to this. Walk the Line, 2005, it doesn't count to me as one of the modern ones, but we're going to get Queen's greatest hits. Oh, we're going to get the greatest hits for Bob Marley. Oh, we're going to get Amy Winehouse, not even greatest hits, but shites. And Rocket.
I mean, we'll always have Mamma Mia, but you know that's a slightly different music.
We'll take Mamma Mia. We'll take Mamma Mia. It's got Pierce Brosnan, but yeah, Rocketman it's made the list because I think it's fair to be there. And I know for London Film Festival, there's now a Magic Fleet. And also, let's talk about the Elton John farewell tour. The man had a John Lewis album, a never-ending tour, a COVID appointment, a Glastonbury set piece, a film made out about him, and now he's got a fucking documentary film coming out as well, talking about rinsing things. But I can say his music is a banger, and he still can perform at his age. So kudos to him. London Film Festival.
Words anymore. If you hear him singing, he can't pronounce any of the words.
He sort of shouts the words.
His Glastonbury set was like when he started doing "I'm Still Standing." I was like, "It's I'm Still Standing." I love I'm Still Standing.
It's so. Hey, it didn't cost me £380 like Oasis tickets. It's not that I'm going to that anyway. I don't care about that, but yeah,
we're still together by the time gig is.
Now, there's got to be some TNT deeply hidden. Like if Oasis split up, you will not receive a refund. There's got to be that hidden somewhere. I would love that court case to make on the news. Honestly, it'd be so funny. But yeah, sorry, that's my third pick. Bit unconventional, and I don't normally talk about work-related things. The company got liquidated, by the way, so I can talk about them a bit. Good riddance. Unpaid $750,000 tax bill. That sort of summed it up, and why I was gone after a year. And I chose. It sounds like a lunatic losing the plot. Take all of that anyway, but it was very much this company says shit. I'm going to give my notice in with no job lined up. So I got very lucky. I got a job 2 weeks after. Because I was almost at a bad, could have been bad, but I'm good now. Clearly,
so
I'm gonna have to do videos again.
Yeah, for my third pick, I'm doing an audible. I'm calling an audible. I'm changing the play slightly. So originally, I had 12 Angry Men planned in as my third pick because I absolutely adore the film. I went through a phase once I started doing film reviews where I got really into kind of old school classic kind of cinema, and that was the one that's kind of stuck with me throughout time, and I'll continue to rewatch it over and over again. I think Sidney Lumet, phenomenal director, and what a brilliant film just in general. And George's story has actually swayed me here because there is a film which I have talked about on the channel before, which I was involved in, and I've been involved in through background acting, through various different things, like from sex education all the way through to this pick, which is 1917. And I think it's interesting in the fact that I didn't think it was going to be a big project when I first signed on board. They said, hey, we need a few people to play soldiers. We need extra kind of people on board for it. It's going to be maybe like we'll see kind of, we'll do casting first and then we'll see how long the shoot's going to be. And I was like, sure, I've got nothing going on, I'll put my name down for it. And the casting call was kind of less of a casting call and more of a, we're going to put you in costume and we're going to put you through full military gun training, which was like, whoa, okay. So they gave us proper old school World War I Enfield rifles, and we were shooting blanks in a field for a day, which was very surreal and very, very kind of odd and interesting. And I thought, okay, fine. Even if I don't get the role, this is cool. And then they kind of came back and they said, okay, we need a lot of people. We need a lot of people, so we're taking you on board. And I wasn't a major role in this film. I was just a soldier in the field, in the forest, in the trenches, in like 5 or 6 different scenes. And yes, it does repeat and it does loop. And it was fascinating seeing that side of filmmaking. Especially at this point, I was fully clued on to films, and I've never studied films, but I understood how films were made. I understood different filmmaking techniques and everything like that. So that was a phenomenal experience for me in that sense. And then on the final day of filming, because this was in like June, July, and it was roasting hot the entire time. It was like the hottest summer on record when we were filming it, in a chalk trench, wearing full gear, including like winter overalls and then stuff over the top. They said, hey, we're going to put you in for something special. And I was like, okay, great. So I spent 5 hours in a makeup chair, like getting like things put on me to make it look like I had shrapnel wounds. And they gave me a tent for the day. And because, of course, they had to film with the same kind of setting in the background. They're using purely natural lighting, purely natural kind of things. So Roger Deakins was waiting for clouds to come over because all the previous scenes were clouds. So for the entire day, I was sat there in a tent next to Sir Roger Deakins. And basically, because we had nothing else to do, we just went in and had a chat with him, and had a chat with Sam Mendes, and just kind of sat there and shot the shit because it was sunny all day and they got like half an hour worth of filming. So that was just such a phenomenal experience for me. Like, I don't think I'll ever get anything like that ever again. And I knew it was a massive production. I knew it was brilliant and big. And then when I went to go see the film, I was like, wow, this is phenomenal. And I never got to see it in cinema first time round because I was out in Austria. So I was having to watch like an online copy. And then when I finally got to see it in the cinema, it was like, poof. But the fact that it got nominated for Oscars, it will stick with me as an experience. And I still have my Devon patch. I was part of the Devon regiment, and I still have my my on-set card of me in my in my uniform there, which sit on my desk of various different collectibles on my desk, including like a Moordale card from Sex Education and stuff like that. So film experience, I don't think I could get anything better than that. And I've been on loads of different films since then, background artist, you know, supporting actor and everything like that. I don't think anything will compare to that experience of being there and the camaraderie of just sitting in the fields, playing cards with people, waiting for it to get cloudy, basically. Torturous weather, but unreal experience. And I don't think I'll ever match it with anything that I ever do, filming-wise.
Of the two World War I films that filmed that same fucking summer, I can assure you that you were on the better of the two.
I got the better one.
King's Man, which was not fun to work on, unlike yours. So it's basically half of every extra that was male under 25 that was put on a roll. Everyone did one or the other, and that was that was chaos.
I will say now, George McKay, phenomenal actor. I'll give you a little tidbit on set. In the scene where he was in the forest, just about to go into the trench before going over the top, he took off his shoes, and he'd been wearing authentic World War I style shoes. And basically tipped out his shoe and blood just dripped out. He was blistered up, and he said, "Look, I'm hardcoring this," because I was having a chat with him. I was like, "That looks bad." And he was like, "Yeah." He said, "I'm hardcoring this because this is like my first big film experience, and I want to set this as my standard as an actor." And he was like, "We've been filming this for like a month now," and he's just kind of like, some days they'll kind of harden up and callous, and other days they will just bleed because the shoes are that bad. And yeah, he was such a nice guy, but God, hardcore. Like, yeah. Paul's face. I could give you so many little tidbits.
I don't think he was that hardcore in the Proclaimers musical he was in.
No. Yeah, phenomenal film, phenomenal experience to work on.
That's amazing. Could you see yourself in the film when you watched it?
Yeah.
Were you like, "Hey, that's me"?
In the trailer, when we're going over the top, I was the back of my line, because I was given 2 stripes. I wasn't just a private, you know. I was a lance corporal. So I was at the back of my line, and meant to kind of follow my men over the top. And as he comes through the cloud of smoke, you can see it in the trailer. There is a person who's holding their gun and trips, and doesn't fall over, but trips and then continues running. That's me. I'm fumbling my gun there. That was horrific. Another fun thing.
Every single person watching this video has now paused it to look up the trailer for 1917.
It took. We did 7 takes of the going over the top thing because, of course, it's one shot. The one that they took in the end was the second take that we did, and we were looking down the trench line, which was about half a mile long, and we saw him run into the first person, and we all kind of turned to each other and said, "Fuck's sake, that's like a reset. That's going to be like 2 hours to reset all the explosives and do all of that." But they decided to go with that one in the end, and on that take, I think one person dislocated their shoulder, one person twisted their ankle, so it was a bit of a you know, because you're just running through a field, like. But
that's hardcore.
Great experience. Yeah.
So hardcore. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
God.
What's your third pick?
My one. So mine. I'm actually going to keep it on a similar theme of Sam Mendes and Roger Deakins, but I'm going to go with Skyfall.
Nice.
For me, when I first started working in a cinema at 18 years old, little fresh-faced Paul, no wrinkles, no beard, hair, if you can believe it. The day I started was the day Skyfall came out, and it's a big chain cinema in Wimbledon with an IMAX 12 screen. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd only ever had one job before then. I worked in a hotel for 6 months. I'll be honest with you, I was a terrible waiter. Although I got to meet some famous people, which was nice, but I was terrible at it. And I was like, this is going to be much more my speed. It's a cinema. I can do it. And yeah, it was the Friday that Skyfall came out. And it was basically like somebody just sort of pat me on the back and went, "All right, good luck." Because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And every screen was sold out. And that film played for, it came out in like the end of October. It was still there in January. it was there forever. And I just remember growing more and more confident at my job and just constantly hearing that bloody Adele song. And I've gone through, like, I love this song. I can listen to this every single day. So I hate that woman's voice, and if I ever see her, I'm going to hit her because I'm so sick of hearing them. So now whenever it's on, because it's on ITV2 like every day or something, and whenever it is, I do sort of go, I do love this film. But I've got such memories of just walking up and down like the concourse of the cinema, and you can just hear the opening notes of it, or you can just hear the Thomas Newman score, or just random lines of dialogue that are now just seared in my head because the IMAX was so loud, and they'd show it up until about midnight that I'd have to sit in for the final sort of 10 minutes. That final scene, I think I could have described the wallpaper. I'd seen it so many times. Like, I was like to the point where I was noticing continuity errors where I'm like, his tie's shifted. That he actually had 2 top buttons done up. Now he's only got 1. The blood's moved on her face. Like, it got to that point where I was there, like, sat there just quoting along with it like a zombie. But it kind of reminds me of a time in my life where, you know, I was becoming an adult and I was sort of, I don't know, kind of finding my feet as a person. And I still really like that Adele song, even though I went through a period where I was like, I hate that song and I hate that woman.
I mean, it's the second highest grossing film ever in the UK after Star Wars 7, so it was the biggest when it came out. And I feel like Bond 50 was like the best anniversary we've probably ever had for a franchise, if I'm really honest. I know Star Wars will be 50 in a few years, but 2012 was Bond, the Olympics, you had the London Olympics, obviously. Then you had Skyfall come out, and it was the anniversary come out, and you couldn't not hide from it. And you know what? I think that's a pretty great one to have. I mean, it wasn't Quantum of Solace, right? Like, imagine having to have heard the Jack White song on loop for 3 months.
Oh my god! Honestly,
I don't mind that song, but even I wouldn't want that on loop for 3 months.
If it was Casino Royale, though. Yeah.
This the problem with working in a cinema, especially when there's a popular film, is that you then end up hearing, if it's got a song in the end credits as well. Like, I remember when The Hobbit came out, like, and I just hearing that bloody Misty Mountains song, and I'm like, I hate you so much, Ed Sheeran. I hate you. And I never got to the point where I liked that song. I was just constantly like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And yeah, just it got to the point where whenever I hear Martin Freeman's voice, I'm like, I better go clean screen 7. Because now I just naturally assume that it's him going, what have we done? I'm like, oh god, I better go clean it then. It's going to come out. But yeah, Skyfall for me, it's also a great film that I've rewatched countless times and I adore. But it just reminds me of that period of time as well.
At least it wasn't the binocular days like today where you have to go into the cinema, get the binoculars out and scan the audience to check they're not working. And by the way, someone in a screening of Spider-Man 3 from 2007 decided to come in the room with binoculars to check you weren't pirating a film from, yes, that's right, 2007.
But I went on a date to see Spider-Man 3.
Good film.
It did not last. I don't know.
Well, it's worked out for the better.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, George.
Yeah, my number 4. I'm not gonna lie, I'm struggling with this, and I'm gonna talk you guys through it whilst I name it. And it's not for a dramatic effect. I've got 3 films, 2 of which from one series, the other is from another series, and I'm narrowing it down to 2, and they're both from the year 2002. So I've basically got a choice to make from something near and dear to my heart on 2 separate occasions. Ironically, both of which I've been speaking about very recently, which doesn't have recency bias, but I'm looking at the impact it made. I've spoke about the first one I saw at the cinema. I spoke about the film that made me want to be working in film, the film I worked on in film. I just want to talk about the innocence of childhood and how fucking great it was to grow up with certain franchises. In a time at primary school, you didn't have bills, you didn't have homework, you didn't have to worry about a lot of things. And there were 2 franchises that I sort of grew up with that wasn't just Star Wars. And I'm going to go with, I think, the correct one for what epitomizes being at school, which was the Harry Potter films, right? And I'm specifically going to pick the Chamber of Secrets going to 2002. Now, the other option, if you haven't worked out, but I was Spider-Man 02. But I've just been thinking, it's not because we spoke about it on a video that was live that we're pre-recording this sort of 8 days early, but the Harry Potter films, certainly for our generation, we're all similar ages. That epitomizes, I feel like, our generation, maybe the generation above us as well. The generation below, nope, you guys got to watch all of them in a row. You didn't have to wait. You didn't have to wait for the books. You just had it all, and then it was part of their curriculum, which is wild. But I've picked The Chamber of Secrets because this film had a profound impact on me growing up. The franchise was massive. I loved watching them when they came out. The Chamber, and if I'm narrowing it down, I thought, I go Deathly Hallows Part 2. That was like the event film of our lives, that everyone at school was watching that film when it came out. It came out at the end of year 10. Everyone was doing Neville memes. Everyone was laughing about Voldemort, the dead baby Voldemort, laughing, doing the hug. Yeah, it's great, and it's a really nice bookend. But I think when you think about those early days, right, I was lucky. I had a couple of Lego Harry Potter sets as a kid. Turned out they're the first ever Lego Harry Potter sets, but I still have all of them. And I had a Lego Chamber of Secrets that you would put the Great Hall on top of, which was really, really fucking cool. But this film was just massive for me growing up. And I feel where I'm going with this, and it's really fucking tricky to talk about because of the obvious, you know who, not Lord Voldemort this time, the Lord of Mold, J.K. Rowling in her Scottish castle. Yeah, the mold memes are incredible. And if people are unaware, please just Google J.K. Rowling mold. Honestly, I kid you not. You can't. It's not even political at this point. It's just funny at this point in time how deranged she's become, which is sad because where I'm going with that is these films shaped a lot of what I end up not necessarily being when I'm older. I'm not a wizard, obviously, but I was at uni when Fantastic Beasts came out, and I started rereading the books. I was like, wow, like I know this film has a lot to do with like classism, racism to a degree, with mudbloods being an offensive term, blah blah blah. It's like this film really did subconsciously teach me a lot about the real world. And someone's probably gonna laugh in the comments or take the piss or whatever. I'm not like a deranged Harry Potter fan. Like I love them. I've grown up with them as films. I respect them as an advocate of British cinema. They're up there with Bond for me. And if I'm honest, they've been, to my knowledge, the top three franchises of our lives have been Marvel, Star Wars, and Harry Potter in terms of money, not in terms of like personal preference. But this is one of the biggest IPs ever made. And it was a massive part of our lot growing up. And I don't know how it is for the generation below. The generation below that are going to get a TV series year by year, which is going to probably be, if not as big as the films, probably not bigger, but it could potentially be Game of Thrones-esque in terms of scale and impact. There'll be multiple generations watching it, kids with the adults that grew up with it. But I just feel like, not that I'm a better person because that's cringy to say, because I can consciously make my decisions about who's right and who's wrong. And if I was being a weirdo, I'd defend J.K. Rowling at all costs, like some strange people do. At the same time, it's hard to not talk about her, and there are people I know who have loved the series who now won't acknowledge it, which I respect as well, because it's a very tricky scenario we're in. But then I look at the cast, and I look at people like Daniel Radcliffe, who I fucking love. And he's genuinely like one of the nicest guys. You ever see him in interviews, see him as a person, you see what he's been as an actor, what he's been through with his personal stuff, what he advocates for. And look at Emma Watson, I see the same at times. I don't think she's as good an actress. Sorry, Beauty and the Beast auto-tune, I do not forget. But then you look at like the adult cast and, hey, this is how I got introduced to Gary Oldman's work, one of my favorite actors. Hey, this is how I got introduced to Alan Rickman. And then as I've grown older, I look back at scenes and it's incredible how my opinion has changed over the years, but how there are some things I didn't care for as a kid, like the Shrieking Shack. As an adult, I'm like, you've got four of the best stage actors of a generation just absolutely doing, I don't want to call it modern Shakespeare, but the scene in the Shrieking Shack is literally just them on stage together, isn't it? It's fantastic. And it's very near and dear to my heart. And I just kind of sat there thinking that if these I'm not sat here on a pedestal of morality being right and wrong. Like I don't put myself on a high pedestal as like the best guy ever made, but I just feel like this subconsciously taught me a lot more about the world than it needed to. And as I've got older and lived in that world more, I've been able to track it back to, yeah, I know not to be a prick because these were the pricks in these books that I read and know fondly and were in the films know fondly. And just kind of going back to other things, like, again, like without just harping on the writer, it's kind of sad that the writers end up in that way. At the same time, I love the fact that the entirety of this young cast have all done well for themselves. Bar Crab growing a bit of weed. What's the biggest, what's the biggest issue that's come from the cast? It's literally just Crab being part of the London Riots and getting sacked from Harry Potter. Like, the cast have come out great. It's true though, isn't it? Like, I'm sorry to be waffling, but it's remarkable. And you look at the state of the American film industry where they churn up their kid actors. They don't have any sensibility of, kids doing 12, 15-hour days. It's disgusting. A lot of stuff I found out in the SAG strikes last year about how they treat young actors. We know it was bad. I did not know it was that bad. So credit to Warner Brothers, to David Heyman, who, if I'm going to jump on one step further, not to say he's one of the responsibilities of this being so successful, but it's quite clear that he's continued to have success outside of Harry Potter, whilst other people in Harry Potter haven't. And there's a reason it's being rebooted by the writer who kind of anybody want to come back to do a sequel 19 years later that's a fantastic stage play. So sorry to go on a weird tangent. Does it make sense as a fourth pick?
Yeah.
I know I haven't
absolutely.
I spoke about Chamber of Secrets that much, but it is up there. Gilderoy Lockhart, I'm sorry, is one of the greatest characters ever put to screen. I have his, when I went to the studio store, I got the Gilderoy Lockhart chocolate frog card, and I was absolutely fucking buzzing.
Lockhart was, for a very long time, my favorite Harry Potter, because I was like book mad. Video games I used to play, like when people would talk, because I've not I'll be honest with you, not out of any moral thing. I'm so behind on video games. I'm playing games that came out 10 years ago. I'm just so far behind, and I don't play all the time, so it takes me forever. I've not played Hogwarts Legacy, but my first question when one of my friends had played it, I was like, "Can you do Flipendo?" I was like, because that was what I remember from the PlayStation 1 game is Flipendo. And I've done the tour. I've not seen the play. For me,
I recommend it.
The problem is I read some of the synopsis and I was like, I don't know. When you're introducing, I'm the secret child of this character that was never mentioned, I'm like, all right, that shark, you're going to jump it now, so I was a bit like not interested.
When I read it, I was like, but when I saw it, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, in terms of a play and a theatre experience, it's wild that it's possible that a lot of it got made. I want to go. I saw it when it first came out, you couldn't get tickets. I was in that category where I had to wait like a year and a half after buying a ticket to go. Now everyone can go, and I'm like, you should have had to wait like me. But I would like to go back in better seats because I was very high up as well.
The cast of the movies as well, and like the great thing is apart from maybe Richard Harris, who was clearly like, I don't really want to be here. Everyone else is kind of like giving it their all. Like, for me, Prisoner of Azkaban is my Harry Potter. I think that's the best one. It's my favorite of the books. I have to admit, I've not revisited the books, and I do revisit the films because they're always on TV. And I find that Harry Potter movies are kind of they're unofficial Christmas films to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're a bit like Mary Poppins and the Wizard of Oz and the Great Escape. A Harry Potter film feels like Christmas. Maybe because they used to release in like the October half term, but they feel like a Christmas film. And for me, there's some moments in that franchise I really love. I really love the scene in Prisoner of Azkaban where Lupin is talking to Harry on the bridge, and David Thewlis is like proper giving it some welly, where he's talking about how he sees the parents in Harry, and I think that's great. I think Jim Broadbent's great in Half-Blood Prince. I think that bit, the whole thing about his memory being tampered with, is actually a really interesting examination of how people misremember their mistakes. And, a bit like when you ask someone like, oh, what happened? And they go, blah, 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 blah. And then you find out the truth is like, oh, actually, you weren't as good as you said you were. And actually, the whole scene where he finally reveals that he helped Voldemort create Horcruxes is such a clever scene. And Jim Broadbent is such a good actor that, I think... I grew up with those films. I was like, God, I think I was... When did the first one come out? 2001? So I was like 6 when the first one came out, and I was like 16, 17.
Jed, friend of the channel, and I always bring this up, he was born the same day the Philosopher's Stone film came out. I cannot comprehend that. He won't be watching this, but every time I talk to him about it, I get very on edge. because I famously punched my auntie in the face because I got a jump scare when the face comes through the book in the library. Yeah, I just went bang, smack, like panicked.
Oh my god!
Yeah, those films. Sorry to put it on a Harry Potter tangent, but
No, it's okay.
They're part of it. They're part of it.
When are you
So-
doing the Harry Potter
Christmas film.
retrospective?
Don't, because the last month there's been a lot of Harry Potter things jumping up in my head. I'm sat there like I'm all in on the TV series now, and I wasn't before. So I'm literally sat there saying, I cannot wait to send Warner Brothers the pitch email of pitch emails when the HBO Max show is like 6 months away from coming out.
I'm waiting until they reboot it another time, and then I can audition to play Lupin, because Lupin as well, right? This is true. I have been told I look like, maybe when I had hair, because my hair was always quite thin, and so many times people are like, you look like Professor Lupin, and I'm like, are you saying that I look like a homeless man? Because he's a homeless man. They're like, no, just the way you look, and I take it as a compliment because David Thewlis is one of my favorite actors. I think he's great. And then I was watching it the other day. Well, not the other day. When I said the other day, I think it was like a year ago. And I was watching it with a friend, and the friend literally went, "You dress like him as well. You don't just look like him. You dress like." I was like, "What do you mean I dress like him?" And they were like, "Look at those cardigans." And I was like, "He got a good card. He does got good cardigans." Oh god, I love. Oh no, the Harry Potter films are great. It's just a shame that J.K. Rowling lost her damn mind.
Yeah.
Mold infected her like the ring that Dumbledore wears rots his hand. Mold is rotting her brain.
I just love that when there's a new game, they have to say she's not attached to it. That's how.
Yeah.
And I know there's what Warner Brothers have tried to buy it from her, they reckon, but I mean that's the one time Warner Brothers actually do well.
It's a shame, and it's weird. Not to go on a J.K. Rowling tangent, but when she was like, "I will never forgive those kids," it's like they've not apologized.
They're not the ones struggling. They're not saying let's reboot Harry Potter because we need work either.
Like, also, this is when they were like they're going to redo it and J.K. Rowling might be involved or whatever. Is the audition process right? Deliver the line. I'm a wizard. Okay, excellent. How do you feel? How many genders are there? Like, have you read the books? Yes. Have you read the script? Yes. Do you think there's 2 genders? Like, what's it going to be?
Don't forget now for JK. Originally, JK Rowling for the last 5 years, you're born a woman, and the last 5 weeks it's been no. It doesn't matter. You're born one. It's now about the testing. So it's all over the place. But
also, like, she created a universe and populated it with these ideas that I think are quite good. I have to admit, mate, I haven't re-gone back to the books because obviously she wrote the Fantastic Beast movies, and I was a bit like, just because you self-identify as a screenwriter doesn't mean I have to accept that you're a screenwriter. It's political correctness gone mad, JK, because they are badly written.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know how she names things, but Cho Chang is fucking racist.
It's
Kingsley
alliteration,
Shacklebolt
isn't it?
is racist.
The one Irish character,
The Pavati, the Patel twins as well.
Oh, Seamus Finnegan, who blows things up. It's like, come on, woman. Even in the Fantastic Beast, she has 2. Do you know what? This is really bad, right? And I never realized this. So the 2 sisters in Fantastic Beast, Queenie Goldstein, which sounds really anti-Semitic, who then joins Wizard Hitler. That's 1. 2, the sister is constantly told she looks like a lizard. Right? They keep going, she has salamander face. She has a salamander face, right? The most anti-Semitic trope is that Jews are lizard people that control the media. It's like, JK, stop being racist. You have one job. Also, I don't like when she gives them really like obscure names, and then there's one guy called like Dave. It's like, oh come on, either everybody's called Flim Flam or everybody's called Jerry. Don't mix and match. Apart from the fact that Dumbledore's middle name is Brian, which always makes me laugh. I don't know why it just makes me laugh.
We're getting all. He's got like 7 names, isn't it? I was about to say Albus Severus, but no, that's Harry Potter's kid.
Albus, Percival, Wulfric, Brian, Dumbledore.
And it's like, oh look, Dumbledore's gay. Let's do a trilogy about it. No, let's not tell them he's gay. That's
One
a
last
separate
thing.
conversation, but it's
One last thing on JK being a dick. You know, Stephen Fry reads the audiobooks. When he was doing the first audiobook, he said that he had trouble with one line, which was that it was Harry pocketed it, right? So he said, "Can I change it to Harry put it in his pocket, which makes more grammatical sense?" And she was like, "Read it as written." And he was like, and he had to keep redoing it because he was like, "I can't say Harry pocketed it in it. Makes no sense." And then he read the script for every single book since, and he was like, "She's put it in every single book 3 times." That like, so if you go back, every single one has Harry pocketed it just to spite Stephen Fry. I was like, why are you so petty?
Oh, it's
Madness.
It's a shame, isn't it? It happens.
I feel like
into
on the horizon, we have got a lot of Harry Potter content that is going to absolutely just. But
is Harry Potter your 4th choice pick?
It is not. No. I mean, George could have easily guessed what my 4th pick would be. It is my favorite film of all time. Most people, if you know me, people ask me what's your favorite film, I immediately go to this one, and there's no hesitation at all. And I've never had the chance to speak about it on the channel, and I do want to speak about it today. But at the same time, I want to do a full video on it. I want it to be up on a pedestal. I want other people to talk about it as well. I adore Gattaca. Gattaca is a phenomenal film. From a storytelling perspective, I love the idea of an underdog story. I love the idea of beating the odds. Throw it into a sci-fi setting, put it into a real sci-fi setting, not kind of, sci-fi that you could maybe not believe in or anything like that. This is sci-fi that is believable. It is predicting the future, and it's kind of aiming in that direction based on what they knew at the time. And throw that in with phenomenal performances across the board from Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, all of the other characters involved. It like Jude Law. It's a film that will always stay with me. And I first watched this, as many people in schools will have done. This was shown in RS or ethics class, and a lot of people do that in secondary school in the UK. So it isn't the first experience, at least. But other people may have shared the same first experience as I did. But I only saw clips of it in school, and I wanted to go and watch the full film. So I went out and got a copy of the full film, and ever since then, I've watched it and watched it and watched it, and I've got to the stage with George as well with his films where you watch it so much that you now have to watch to appreciate. And I've toned it back from the kind of once or twice a year to I'll watch it once every 1 or 2 or 3 years, and every single time it is one of the only films that never fails to make me cry. And even though I've seen the ending multiple times, I will be sobbing. The score to it is beautiful and haunting. The cinematography is just phenomenal. The acting and just the lines and dialogue, it all comes together. I can't gush over this film enough, and one day I will be making a very long video on this channel about this. So my one dream is to be able to see it in cinemas one day, and I'm keeping an eye on the BFI or any other kind of venue if they re-show it, because I'd love to see it in that setting, and just relive the love for this film over again.
I've still not seen it, and it's really bad because we've been.
I know, right?
No, Gattaca is really good. I'm glad that there's the big Gattaca fan out there, because I think it's good. Also, no Gattaca, no Maya Hawke.
Yeah, exactly. It's the film where Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman,
Thanks, Gattaca.
But it's just words escape me for this film. Like I've watched loads of other films over the years, whether they're kind of films that came out before it, films that have come out since then. There have only been a few films that have come close to giving me the same kind of experience that it was watching it for the first time and then watching it on repeat, like over and over again. I try and constantly update my list of my favorite films of all time, but the one thing that will never change is that Gattaca is number one. And I love to find more people to have a proper discussion about it, because it is one of those films. But George, I can't believe you still haven't seen it.
I saw it on offer, which is probably even worse to say, isn't it?
I'm sure it's on streaming somewhere. I feel like I saw it.
I don't think it is. It's rarely ever on streaming. I think it was on Sky Cinema.
it's definitely had a 4K release in the last few years. I've seen
It was
it
on
on
Sky Cinema a while ago.
It is underrated. It is good.
You can watch it on Google Play. You can pay for it on Amazon Prime, or you can pay for it on Apple TV. It's not on streaming. It's one of those weird films that never really comes on.
Should be, because it is good.
Yeah.
I will watch it one day. Maybe for the 10th anniversary next year.
It
that would actually work as a video.
It came out in '97, so
wow, yeah, but it's our 10-year anniversary, not there. So
you're right. Yeah.
There you go. Locked in May next year.
Yep. Excellent.
Well,
what's your last pick, Paul?
My one is because obviously, I mean, don't get me wrong. I've not gone down the Tayte route of picking a film I despise. The films I picked, I love. I love all these films, and I love this film. But this film is a very personal pick for me. It's Edgar Wright's The World's End, which is probably the least loved of the Cornetto trilogy, but it's the one that means the most to me. And don't get me wrong, I love Shaun of the Dead. I watched Shaun of the Dead, God knows how many times. Hot Fuzz, I love. But The World's End means a lot to me because anyone who knows me, obviously, you know, we're pretty close. And anyone who follows me on social media will know that I obviously have very big struggles with mental illness. And I'm a big advocate for helping and talking about mental illness. And when I was in a particularly dark period in 2013, The World's End came out. And obviously I was like, I'm going to go see this. I was working in a cinema, so I saw it for free. And I remember sitting there. I was the only person in the screen because I saw it at like 11 in the morning because I like seeing films with no one around. And I was watching it. And all the way through, I found myself like agreeing with things that were being said in the film by the Simon Pegg character. Like, I feel that way. I feel that way. And by the time it gets to the end, and you know, spoiler alerts of The World's End, you find out that he's got addiction and mental health issues, and he's been in a facility for it. It kind of helped me realize that I was going through a bit of a breakdown, and it was kind of a bit of a kick up the backside for me to sort of take stock, realize that I was doing a similar thing that he was doing. I was pushing people away, was being self-destructive. I mean, in that period of time, I was drinking a bit too much as well. I wouldn't say I was a full-blown addict, but I was definitely medicating. And so for me, every time I've watched The World's End since, it's like, it's weird. It's like greeting an old friend. It's like, there you are. And for me, I've met people. I mean, I know people that say it's like one of the worst films they've ever seen, or, oh, it's not funny, or it's a letdown compared to Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. But for me, it's almost like Edgar Wright made a film just for me. And it's one of those things where you're watching a film, and this is what I think cinema does best, is you can watch a film made by someone who, I mean, I will probably never meet Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg and all those guys, even though I love their work. But it's like they made a film that just sort of said, don't worry, it's okay. You're not alone. Other people feel this way, and it's all right. It will be okay. And so for me, if we're talking about films that made us who we are, The World's End sort of helped me come to terms with who I was as a person. And it's a film that I will always be grateful exists. And, you know, last year was the 10-year anniversary and people were talking about it. And I was just like, I kind of owe it everything in a way, because I don't really think I'd be here if I hadn't had that kind of moment of clarity with it. And it was after that I was like, I think I need to get some counseling. I need to get some help. I need to sort myself out. So for me, it's a bit of a bit of a serious thing to end the show on. But for me, The World's End is one of those ones where I'm like, I don't really care I don't care what people think about other films I love, but this one I'm a bit like, yeah, I don't care if you don't find it funny or if you think it's bad or whatever, because it means everything to me as a person. And, you know, like I said, I probably wouldn't be here without it. So yeah, that's my last pick.
That's so touching, and that's absolutely like why we did this video in the first place. Like, these are films that, you know, have helped us out at times. These are films that have, you know, frustrated us at times, and these are just everything in between, things that we love, and just talking about cinema. And it's so nice to have that kind of experience with a film that you can turn around and say, that has helped me out, and that has, you know, made me in that way. So no, that was really good. Thank you.
No, I know we spoke about it before, and you've always brought the Cornetto trilogy, especially with World's End, and I know we spoke about it in person, so I appreciate you bringing it up on the stream. So I know it's very delicate to talk about subjects as well. And I know you've always been pretty open with stuff like that, so we massively appreciate that. And it's kind of why I mentioned Lion King earlier. She's like, I know we get Paul on this episode, it will be a bit different in a good way, in a much better way, that we are going to be able to talk about more personal things of our lives and stuff, because it's easier when we're comfortable with the people we're talking to. So it's like a massive thank you for coming onto this. And without segueing, I'm just going to really quickly bring my failed predictions.
I want to bring mine as well. Paul, you didn't pick the girl with the dragon tattoo. What's going on with that?
You know, I was so close, and then I was like, "Do I go Skyfall or Dragon Tattoo?" Wait, hang on, hang on, hold it up. What were the ones you picked? So
I put Lion King, Girl, Dragon Tattoo, Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
I can't believe I forgot about Jurassic Park, because you've got the amazing Miss DNA tattoo. And Tayte.
Yeah. What have you got? Gattaca 1917. No way you put 1917. Because that was an audible. I was definitely going for Angry Men.
And this is where I got to. Mine was going to be Star Wars 1, Dark Knight, Rocketman. It was going to be HP 207 or Spider-Man 1.
I'll show you.
These are my George predictions, right? I did terribly.
Maverick, I really thought about Maverick. War of the Worlds, I love that song there.
Because do you know what it was? Especially when you were talking about like, first film I ever saw, and I was like, he's always talking about how he saw War of the Worlds for a birthday. He's going to pick War of the Worlds.
I did. So, my 9th birthday in 2005, I then went to Toys R Us and got bought Lego Star Wars 1.
I went so left field with my George predictions. I went Star Wars, but I went A New Hope. I went Fast 5 because I thought you love the Rock. You love the Rock so much.
I do love the Rock, but I wouldn't have put. Or maybe it was like an episode on like the best films starring wrestlers.
Who is the best wrestler? Batista films. Is it Dave Batista?
It's Batista. It's not even close.
Batista, then Cena, then Roddy Piper, then The Rock.
Is Roddy Piper just because of They Live?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he's here to chew bubblegum.
And he wasn't in Black Adam, so that goes a long way. He didn't become the joke in Deadpool because of Black Adam. Huh?
I used to really like Dwayne Johnson, but I feel
I still do. He's rebuilt his wrestling career because his Hollywood career is not taken off anymore, and now we find out he pisses in bottles and has people carry around.
That movie he's doing, what is it? Is it the Safdie movie where it's like this boy wants an Oscar nomination before Dave Batista gets one. That's what he wants.
It has the potential to. It goes two ways, right? It'll actually be great, or it will be comically. What on earth is he doing in this film?
I don't think he's a bad actor. I just think his ego has stifled
his
him.
Ego has a combination of him typecasting himself and his ego. But now he's back in WWE as the final boss, and he's actually fucking great. So his best character is actually him going back to wrestling.
Whereas at least John Cena's like, I'll do anything for a laugh. Like, if it makes people at least smile, I will happily go on the Oscar stage bollock naked. Whereas Dave Batista's like getting proper directors. He's like, I will do a small role in a Denis Villeneuve movie.
Without turning and making this video longer, there's a very famous wrestling incident where The Rock and John Cena are having a promo when they're doing their rivalry. And John Cena says off mic, off the cuff, he's like, at least I don't write my promos on my wrist, and pulls his wristband out because The Rock famously would have it written on his thing. And behind the scenes, it kicked off big time because of that. And at that point in life, I realized that John Cena is actually amazing on the mic. And The Rock was proper. I'll send you the clip. If anyone ever watched it, he is not fucking happy, and it's so funny because of that.
He strikes me as someone who's. That's why all the fucking Fast and Furious beef, which is like you're all a bunch of children. Like, who gives a shit?
but sorry to turn this into a Rock John Cena discussion. That's for another time. Maybe the first wrestler to an Oscar. Who knows? One day, probably be Cena if it's any. Batista, sorry, not Cena.
I would love for John Cena to win the Oscar first. I would love for him to win it first.
If Cena ever gets one, it'll be a comedy nomination, and it'll be a very well-earned one. But without segueing into talking about John Cena, although I am going to talk ever so briefly about DC, because we're on episode 2. We're on a 13-season run, ironically after Tate's discussion about 13-episode series being much better than 8-episode series. Thank you very much. That's a clip from last week's of what we watched for those wanting to watch. We are going to be back next Tuesday with another episode of this, and we are going to be talking about the best DC villains. Not the best DC villains, sorry, the Mount Rushmore of DC villains. Need to get the title right, and we will have our guests announce that at a later date. But that is going to be going up next Tuesday. We're, of course, pre-recording this, and these videos are going to go every Tuesday for the next 10 weeks after today. Paul, handing over to yourself, though, what are you up to for people that haven't already followed you on social media?
Doing film reviews, things like that. Still being features editor for Film Hounds magazine, so give them a follow, because even stuff that I don't write, it's pretty good. But if you follow me on Twitter, Paul Klein Yo with 2 O's, you'll be able to find my link tree, where my TikTok, Letterboxd, all that goodness, and you'll see me wax lyrical about Buffy the Vampire Slayer pretty much daily, I would say. It's a shame that we weren't doing TV shows that made us, because it would have been Buffy. Would have been Buffy, CSI, Scooby-Doo, and Blackadder.
That could
season
be
2.
Maybe season 2, yeah.
I'm now curious what's going to be on the Rushmore of DC villains. Is it DC movie villains?
Yes.
Yeah.
We will. I think it will be film villains. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. We'll have the quintessential Joker, Jared Leto, of course. But aside from him and a few others, I do not really know. So people have to tune in next week. And for people watching at home, we do want to hear your Mount Rushmores of the films that made you. Comment, and we will reply to those comments. So even if you think it's a bit personal, it's not. With how today's gone, we've all been talking about personal things with us growing up, with our work, with our lives. So we do hope you have enjoyed this. If you want to find out about other videos, get us on linktree.com/cinemasabi. That'll pop you through to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. In the meantime, we will be back with another review later in the week. That being said, that is everything I could think of. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. Tayte, as always, it's been a pleasure. And we will see you all on the next one at home. Take care.